You saw the title in the thumbnail. This thing almost killed me, and it gave me a whole new respect for prop makers everywhere. Have you ever taken on a project that became an adventure all of its own? That's this thing. Even fully planned out projects, you encounter unanticipated obstacles. This project, I had no idea how I was going to do it. I only had two strategies here. First, take it one step at a time, and second, everything else, future me will have to figure it out. To make matters worse, lots of people are relying on this thing. It has to do things I've never even considered before, and I'm on a tight schedule. Oh dear. My oldest daughter is in a dance team, and they're doing a rendition of Greased Lightnin, like from the show, the movie with John Travolta, where all the teenagers look like they're 35 for some reason. I'm not going to play the dance routine here because the copyright strike would hit just so hard. The routine focuses around this like very distinctive red Ford. It looks ridiculous. It's got these big fins on it and big bug-eye headlights and stripes, and it's bright red. But it's supposed to look like what a teenage hot rodder kid thinks looks cool. So ridiculous is perfect. But the thing is, you can't just go get one of those. Well, my wife let someone know, like, hey, Paul's built a custom car for kids before. He could do it again, no problem. Okay, here's what it's got to do. One, it has to vaguely resemble an old red car, kind of like in the show. I took that to mean it must be screen accurate, or anything less than that is a moral failing on my part. I may have put that on myself. The teacher was like, no, just old and red, we're good. Two, the girls will have to interact with it. A good prop and like a dance routine doesn't just sit there and people like move around it, right? You gotta like interact with the thing, otherwise why be there? It's a dance routine, not a car show. They're gonna do cartwheels on the thing, jumping in it, standing on it, and so on. Three, it would be really great if they could drive it too. Believe it or not, that's the easy part. If you don't see the problem here, let me spell it out for you. This thing doesn't just have to look like the movie car. It has to survive. Has to survive transport, has to survive rehearsals, like stage crews moving the thing around. And it's got to be like ergonomic enough to get in and out, and for a girl to drive around that they don't really have to think about it because they're busy, like doing a dance number. It must do all of these things, or 30 some odd kids are going to be let down, including one of mine. That can't happen. Oh, and for the record, I did build a custom car for kids a while ago. That took me 2 years. This time, I have 2 months. Okay, I can't 3D model a car from scratch. Maybe I don't have to. Did some digging and unearthed this. It's a 1948 Ford Deluxe 3D model. Straight from the movie, the final race scene. You know, it's white, doesn't have the big stripes, doesn't have a lot of the features. They're not doing the race scene, they're doing the dance scene. Whatever, close enough. Future me will figure out how to make it look correct. Have you ever seen a video where people like build a custom car? They start with a car. I gotta get one of those, but for kids. Fortunately, we like sent out a group message to all the parents, and one of them had a Mustang Power Wheels that they're like, it's toast, it doesn't work, we don't want it anymore, take it. Cool, future me will figure out why it doesn't work and we'll make it run. But now we got a starter car and we kind of got a 3D model. Now I got to get this thing into Blender, my 3D modeling program, so I can try to make it fit. I've never done that kind of 3D modeling before, but it can't be that hard. So you know what happens here? Off comes everything that's screwed down to this car, because I'm probably going to get rid of most of it anyway. We don't want a Mustang at the end, we want a 48 Ford Deluxe with ridiculous fins on the back. Break out the 3D scanner. This thing is great. Seriously, people, get a 3D scanner. They are awesome. Here's a tip. If you're scanning something really large like this, don't start on one side and work your way around, because there are like errors that build up, and by the time you get all the way around, that shell might not line up like this. You'll get like a weird thing like here. So here's what you do. You got the car, start in the middle, go out, do the side, go back to the middle, out, do the side, go out to the middle, do the back. Every time you return to the middle, it like re-indexes the model. Like, okay, we're orientating everything around the middle. And doing that, it all kind of got scanned nice and easy into the program. It definitely saved me a lot of time here. Okay, now I have a Mustang model and a 48 Ford model. Check out this problem. Power Wheels cars aren't just small, they're also proportioned kind of differently. I'm going to skip over the 3D modeling here, but suffice it to say, it was a real trial by fire, and the struggle will haunt my dreams for the rest of eternity. As a bonus, I am now very comfortable using Blender. I made it fit, I added the fins, then I had to convert, like, it was a 3D skin. I had to convert the skin to like 3D volumes that I can chop up and print later. Again, that part's future me's problem. I have never printed anything this big. No idea how it's gonna work. How big is the car anyway? It's over 4 feet long. It's 2.5 feet wide. Nobody makes a printer that big. Oh dear. Biggest one I got's like prints this big. That ain't gonna work. Right about this time, I got an email from a company called Mingda. They want someone to test out a Magician Pro 2 3D printer. It's a big printer. Oh really now? It ended up being the MVP of the whole project. We'll get to that part later. First off, how big is it? It's 400 millimeters on a side. It turns out that the largest single piece is like the rear fender, the fin, the big tall fin, and that's just under 400 millimeters tall. Perfect. In case you're wondering, here's the build plates. The big one's this printer. The small one is a Prusa Mark III, like a normal size one. It's a lot bigger. Okay, so I chopped the body that I had up into about 20 parts. It's chopped up into individual panels, like a panel on the car, a fender's one panel, a door's another panel, and so on. And then I took those individual panels and chopped them up into sections that would fit on this printer. Had I done it again, I would not do it this way. But I never make more than one of anything. Who wants to learn from their mistakes? It's better to just move on to a new project immediately so you can go straight to making new mistakes. Future me can figure out how to put those pieces together. So for those of you who 3D print a lot of stuff, you can probably see the issue here. Okay, 20 parts. That's understandable. 20 is not even that much. I can count that high if I use my toes, but they're 20 huge parts. I would say the average one of these is probably a 40-hour print, right? Some of them were faster, they were smaller. Some of them, I think the record was like 76 hours was the longest one. Now, how often do 3D prints go wrong? The total print time was probably about 40 days. How many of those prints do you think failed? Go down to the comment and type in your guess. So how many do you think? I'll wait. Drum roll. 0. 0 failed. Not a single one of those prints. 40 days, 40 nights, 0 failures. It burned through 3 rolls, 3 5-kilogram rolls of filament that I had to like mount on a dowel between 2 chairs because there's no filament holder big enough for a 5-kilogram roll. Not a single one of them failed. Well, I did have a slicer error on one of the small ones. The slicer kept goofing up, but I fixed that with the slicer update. It's unfreaking believable. I suspect it's because Mingda is not a consumer 3D printer company. I think they're an industrial 3D printer company. They make those gigantic, like, sits on the floor on caster wheels, and there's like a 1 meter cube build area, and it's all enclosed. It goes like crazy temperatures. It can do all sorts of materials, and it costs like request pricing. You know, one of those, fairly expensive. But they also sell like consumer ones too that are a lot cheaper. This is one of the consumer ones. It's just like covered in ball bearings. It's got the cleanest cable management I've ever seen. It assembled really easily, and I had to do nothing to make it work. Like the bed leveling worked. It's slow. The print quality isn't gonna blow you away, although it's not bad. It's not gonna print fancy carbon fiber impregnated nylon. This is all in PLA. It's just big and it works every time. I've seen plenty of videos of like other people and they review like really big fancy new printers, and then like 2 weeks later, my printer's broken. Yeah, this one, no. 40 days and nights, 0 problems. It didn't even, like, none of them came unstuck from the bed. It's wild. Okay, if you're interested in that, there's a link in the description below and in the pinned comment. Okay, now I got a gigantic pile of 3D printer parts and no idea how to put them together because clearly I didn't add like locating pins or anything like that into the model. That would require foresight. Future me will have to figure that out. Okay, to speed this video up, I'm only going to show you how I assembled one fender, and just assume I did that for the whole car. In this model, I separated the pieces as though they were panels on the original car, so the front fender is in 2 pieces. All the fenders are in 2 pieces. Here's one of the front fenders. I connected them, I just lined everything up with tape and used epoxy. The best epoxy I found was called Plastic Weld. It's designed for plastic. It doesn't cure very quickly, but it never let go. I printed most of these with the gluing surface flat to the bed, and fortunately none of them warped. So I ended up with like perfectly mating glue surfaces that had like a texture, because this printer has like a textured bed. Worked really well. It gave the glue like something to hold on to, I think. So now for those layer lines. I tried sanding with a big power sander and it worked pretty well, but it run into a problem. The sander can overheat the plastic, which causes it to melt, and you end up with like this pilling effect, kind of like an old couch or something. That's not ideal, but if you go slow, it kind of helps. And then I chased that with a gap filling primer. It's a filler primer, just an automotive Rust-Oleum thing. That did not work super well. I think it's designed to fill scratches, not big gaps. I'm sure with like 5 or 6 coats that might work, but I printed these with like 30 0.3 millimeter layer line, so that's some coarse layers. I follow this up with my most hated product of all time, Bondo. I despise working with Bondo. Let me be clear, it does the job, and it does it really well, and you can get Bondo designed to stick to plastic, which is perfect. I just hate working with it. The dust gets everywhere. Like, obviously I used a respirator. I'm not breathing this stuff in, but like it irritates my skin. It's just, it tastes horrible. Just kidding, don't eat it. Anyway, enough complaining. I finished it, sanded it smooth, followed it up with some more of that filler primer. And then some bright red, poppy red. Again, Rust-Oleum. Only the best. This took way too much time. I did not budget all of the paint coats drying into my timeline. It was a mad rush. And then I had a bunch of body panels that were red and no idea how to put them together. That's okay, near future me will have to figure that out once it all dries. Okay, so this thing isn't just going to sit on the podium and look good. This thing has to be involved in some action, so it can't just be epoxied together. Right, something needs to reinforce the joints, and I came with an idea. Have you ever seen those like mesh plastic things that you get at craft stores and people do like the yarn through it or whatever? I'm going to reinforce the joints with that. Worth a shot, right? Well, it better work because I have no time for any other option. So align everything with tape, apply the mesh, and dump epoxy all over it. The layer lines actually give the epoxy some surface to grab and they flow through the mesh. In a few places, I epoxied the actual joint of the prints together, but in a lot of spaces I didn't do that. I just epoxied the mesh to the print. I wanted it that way so that there weren't like two plastic pieces glued together that couldn't flex. That might cause a breakage. If the mesh is the only thing that connects it, that allows a little bit of flex. Because again, kids are literally jumping in this thing, so it's got to have a little bit of flex. This ended up working so well, not a single one of these mesh connections has broken off so far. I ended up gluing the whole front, like the whole shell of the front together, and then the whole rear shell together. So now I got two halves, just need to figure out how to fit it on there. Just one problem, it doesn't fit. Fun fact, sheet metal shears can cut plastic too. And there you have it, a body on a car. It isn't done yet. The epoxy hasn't had long enough to cure, but it's probably gonna be fine. Okay, I'm not gonna show the rehearsals or the performances. It would be super cool to show you, I would like that. But other than the copyright strikes, it's mostly full of other people's children, and I'm not putting that on the internet. All right, here we are, post-rehearsal number 1. Got the body standing up over there. We have a couple of issues. First off, I had like a dash bar put in here. That came off. I'm gonna put this more permanently in there. Gotta cut that to size. They need this to be up and a little less loose. So we're gonna work on that. I've already bolted this down. That wasn't bolted down. And then just some basic stuff inside. I'm gonna cut these off. I have to lock this so that it goes reverse, slow, and fast. We don't want fast. We want reverse and slow. I got a thing printed out for that. But first, we're going to do this part, because if I don't have a dash bar, there's nothing to mount to. Alright, cue the welder. So one of the things we need to discover, the steering column needs to come up, and it needs to be a lot more rigid so the girls can use it to get in and out of it. This gave me a great excuse to break out the welder. It was an excellent reminder of just how rusty I am when it comes to welding. But hey, the kids aren't that big, the welds should hold just fine. Fingers crossed. So I printed up this little bracket, which just goes, just gonna have to screw it in there. She'll be able to shift it forward, but not all the way. There we go. Oh yeah, and the stripes. My wife got these laid out in a computer, cut it out using her Cricut cutter thingy. I literally stuck them on in a mad rush 5 minutes before we had to load the car into the truck to take it to the rehearsal. All right, we had an accident. Lost part of this top windshield. There it is. This is like the flimsiest part. I was kind of afraid the first little bump was gonna break it. Turns out no, the first little bump didn't break it. It took a girl falling right on top of the car to break that. You can see we also have some padding. We're converting this into a bench, and this is gonna be hidden as like a convertible top cover, and the girls are doing like cartwheels over this, so this is like really strong. I can actually lift the whole car up by this. Whew, well, there's a girl doing a cartwheel. She puts her hands in there, and cartwheels like right over the top of it. The first attempt did not go well. She didn't quite get over, and then pause, and boom, right on the front. And they're all like, "Oh no, I broke the car." I'm like, I can fix it, don't worry. So we're gonna re-engineer this. Probably make it, you know, a chopped windshield which the real car has, but I didn't. I didn't chop it because it's gonna hit the steering wheel. So we're gonna super chop it, like real low. So it's gonna be more like a speedster flap. Oh, and the bumpers need to go on. The bumpers are somewhere in the pile of mess. Oh man, we got a problem. You can see the interior is like mostly in here, kinda, but we got an issue. So this is the underside. Yes, it's still being held together by foil tape, and I probably don't need the foil tape anymore actually because of all this reinforcement and all the epoxy. But I'm not gonna risk it peeling it off. This windshield, this is the windshield part. You can see it's not supposed to do that. This is windshield version 2.0, and it's broke. You know, the first one broke, 2.0 broke immediately, first rehearsal actually, and I got version 3.0 here. So this thing, it looks cooler, it looks a little more complete. The center section's a bit thicker, and we've also included like this flap out the back, which kind of, I guess you could call that a tiny dashboard. What it really did was give me a lot more gluing surface and also reinforced it a bit. And this is significantly smaller than the original windshield, and it's tipped forward more, so it's going to be out of the way. But I have to get that one off, and it's epoxied and reinforced on. Get that off and stick this one on. Oof. Sometimes I wish I didn't use that ultra strong plastic weld epoxy. And then other times I'm really glad I did. The surface on the new one doesn't look that great. I didn't have time to like do enough sanding and all that. First competition's tomorrow, so like this thing, it's gotta be done. Pretty or not, like it's gonna look fine from the judge's point of view. Oh man, and now we wait. Slightly disappointed that this doesn't line up as well anymore. And you can see this, the hood's a different color of filament. This is white filament, and this was all done in black. Whew, ran out of black. 10 kilograms of black, ran out. Now I have 5 kilograms of gray and white laying around. I just hope that dash thing fits over the steering wheel, because that is a major concern. Alright, competition 1 is in the books, and we got some car damage. These panels here, yeah, they're supposed to be glued pretty tight. Something happened and broke something free there. There's enough bracing in there that kind of held it together, but I'm going to have to figure that out. Same for this panel, this was all new. Bummed that didn't line up. Something happened and it's all just broke free now. It didn't break in half, so that's good. We can support that. I suspect some of it has to do with the dash actually fouling up the steering column there. So, interesting. Last around the front, we got a bumper problem. In shipping, you know, in the truck, this got broke. So I quickly glued and just aluminum taped that up. But this is falling off again. There's a screw going through there. It wasn't like that when I dropped the car off, but after the show it was. I think when they picked it up, someone's forearm broke that upward or something. I'm not blaming them. This is just a flimsy, crappy way of doing this. That's gonna have to be re-engineered. Seriously, it's like this project never ends. It did work though, and we won a prop award, which was kind of cool. Yeah, the driver's side ain't much better. See, if I move the steering wheel, it bumps it around. Yeah, I gotta fix that. And the rear bumper here has a little bit of wiggle, but it's mostly attached. This is just UV resin. It's not very good at holding it on, but there's like tape under here too, and that seems to do the trick. I might just take it off anyway and then epoxy that on. That's probably a more permanent solution. Otherwise, show went pretty good, I think. And it's not over yet. The final competition is the week after you see this video. The car has taken more hits. It's been carried through countless stage ramps and hotel lobbies. The girls have worked super hard this year, and I want the car to be just that little bit extra nice when we get to the actual like final nationals competition. Give it a little more pop. I also think it needs movie accurate wheels and a sparkly clear coat, and I should shut up and get to work. It's only a few days away. Oh yeah, and I gotta fix the windshield because that's broken, and that big cartwheel bar in the back is bent, so the steel is starting to cave in. That's gotta get fixed. Oh dear. Is this how movie props are? Like, do the actors keep messing with the stuff? I don't even know. Mad respect to all you people in the props industry. Seriously. And then I gotta make the car faster, and it should shoot flames out of the tailpipes.